You've heard from players, you've heard from Pat Riley. Now you'll hear from us as we start our exit interview series and review every player on the Miami Heat roster, looking back at this past season and answering key questions about what's next. Will Jimmy Butler keep dominating? Will Kyle Lowry bounce back? We answered that and more on today's Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, Heat Nation. It's a Wednesday edition of Locked On Heat, your daily podcast covering all things Miami Heat. However, you may be listening or watching on YouTube, Odyssey, or on your favorite podcast app. Thanks so much for making us your first listen every day. I'm David Ramil, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Wes Goldberg. It's an annual tradition around here, our exit interviews starting off today, where we look back at key players on the Heat roster and look back at their past season and what's next. One player in each segment, just so you know, there's 3 per episode. On today's show, we'll ask key questions about Kyle Lowry and PJ Tucker, but we start things off on the only way we should by talking about Jimmy Butler, who gave his all during the past season, especially during the postseason, putting on one of the best, if not the best, playoff performance in franchise history. In his 11th season, Jimmy averaged 21.4 points through 57 games, enough to earn his 6th All-Star selection. Let's get into our top takeaway, our summary of this past season. Yeah. Wes, go ahead. What do you think of Jimmy's overall regular season?
It comes down to this. It comes down to this stat. 21.4 points per game and 14.5 field goal attempts per game in the regular season. You look at the postseason, 27.4 points per game, 19.3 field goal attempts per game in the postseason. He did it again. He went from regular season, not coasting, but a all-star caliber year to basically a top 10 type of player in the playoffs. We've seen it before. We saw it in the bubble. We saw it in the finals in 2020. We saw it again all the way up until Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals. And so that, to me, is the summary of Jimmy Butler's year. And that kind of goes into our key question later, but I'm curious what you think, what your big takeaway was from Jimmy Butler.
Overall, my takeaway was just that he's found a way to bounce back. And at the same time, I won't go so far as to say that he made it look easy, but I think he was more aware of the pacing that the regular season and playoff intensity took, which is why we saw his game up to another level. Like you can chalk it up to a lot of just gamemanship and understanding what's at stake. And of course, when the chips are higher, you want to make sure you play your best and things of that sort. And I think you said a great point early in his playoff run, where he might not be the best player in a series, particularly against the Celtics, but he is the most, what is it, the
best gamer in the league. The best gamer in the league. Yep.
He understands what's at stake. And so for him, it was a lot of being able to kind of pick and choose his spots over the course of the regular season, especially he missed a handful of games. Kyle Lowry's there to take a part of the brunt all away as far as carrying the load. Bam was coming into his own to some degree. You had other players step up. So I think he understood that he didn't have to dominate during 82 games. That doesn't matter to him at this stage of his career. He's not trying to put on a show. He doesn't even care about those all-star selections. As much as they pad what will likely be a Hall of Fame career, he doesn't really need them. So that was my big overall takeaway, is that he's kind of understanding what's at stake there, especially after the grind of the past 2 seasons.
And everything we're talking about, the conversation around Jimmy Butler was, is he that level of a star that can lead you to a championship? And I was skeptical, David. I really was. I really think that Jimmy Butler is close, but not quite that player. And after the playoffs, man, I know that the Heat obviously didn't go to the finals, but not because of Jimmy Butler. I'm done with that conversation. Jimmy Butler is good enough, or at least he was last year at 32 years old now, to get you to the championship. He's good enough to give you a chance, just like any of these other stars that we're talking about. He's not the best player in the league, but I think it warrants a conversation now that the season's over, for the Heat at least. Is Jimmy Butler a top 10 guy? Everybody wants to know, are you top 10? Are you top 10? I think being top 10 is a little overstated, but I kind of do this up. I kind of update my rankings just all the time. I probably do it once every couple months. I don't know why. I just do it. I have him in my top 10. I have him pretty firmly at 9 right now, David. And I feel really good about it. And that's over guys like Kawhi Leonard. I have him over Anthony Davis. I have him over Chris Paul, Damian Lillard. I have him over Devin Booker. I have him over John Morant. I have him over Paul George. I have him over a lot of guys. I have him over Kawhi. Might be the one that people are like, wow, you have Jimmy Butler over Kawhi. You know what I like about Jimmy Butler is he plays games. I like that part about Jimmy Butler. And so to quote our friend Ben Golliver, the best ability is availability. Jimmy Butler, he misses 20 games a year, but that's a lot less than Kawhi Leonard misses. So I've got Jimmy Butler at 9 behind Durant, Giannis, Jokic, Embiid, LeBron, Luka, Steph, Jason Tatum, not in any particular order there, but I've got him behind those guys, and I feel pretty good about it.
Well, I think the bigger takeaway from that is the numbers don't even matter. They certainly don't matter to Jimmy. It's just where he is now in terms of where he was the last season, coming off that disastrous 4-game run against the Milwaukee Bucks in the playoffs. We all heard about the Bryn Forbes comparison and everything else like that. But that now, after he put up monstrous numbers during the playoffs, he's taken his game to a whole other level. I think this is the truer version of who Jimmy is. And that leads us to the big question for next season, which I think, or for the offseason. Again, patterning ourselves after a typical exit interview. What's your big question that you would ask of Jimmy or about Jimmy?
How many years left can you do this, man? How many more years can you do this for us? That's the only question I have. And Jimmy Butler will tell you, I got you forever, man. I'll do this until I'm 77 and I'm doing push-ups with Pat Riley. Right. But that is the big question. And I don't think anybody can answer that. I really don't. But the Heat have to probably make their best guess and kind of base their entire offseason based on that guess.
Yeah. My question is kind of around that same area, and it's what do you want? Because we gave you Kyle Lowry. We've got Bam here. There are questions about every player on this roster not named Jimmy Butler. So what do you want? You are our cornerstone. Pat Riley dismissing that whole brouhaha in March where he blew up at Eric Spoelstra. It's happened to him throughout his coaching career. It's happened to Spoelstra away from the scenes. That had happened in the middle of a game in the midst of a 4-game losing streak. Not the best look, but again, it's totally been blown over. And I think that was pretty evident as Spo continued to praise what Jimmy Butler could do. So anyway, the everything has been mended. Let's just assume nothing was even broken to begin with. But now that the car is, the keys to the car are in Jimmy's hands, you want him to tell you who you want to drive, who's your co-pilot, who's in the back seat, etc. This is your roster. We will do whatever we have to do in order to keep you happy and to keep you playing at this high level. And if it's Kyle, well, we'll continue working with Kyle. If it's not Kyle, and if you're okay moving Kyle for somebody else, then we'll look into that too. What do you want? That's the big question I would ask Jimmy in an exit interview.
It's good. What do you need? What do you need to get us to the next stage, to get us to the NBA Finals? Another thing that we're going to be doing in these exit interviews is we're going to be giving each of our players summer jobs, summer occupations. For Jimmy Butler, did you come up with anything?
I did. I want to hear yours first because I'm curious where you're going with that.
So the easy one is just to say, you know what? This guy's a big face coffee guy. Make him a barista. I don't know that Jimmy Butler is good on like an hourly type of schedule. I'm not sure he wants to work a 9 to 5 at a coffee shop. So I've got him as like an Instagram influencer who focuses on the coffee products. Like he gets really into the drawings on the top of the coffee of the latte and the things like that, like the foam drawings. That's where I have him, is like an IG influencer specific to coffee and the latte stuff.
Okay. I did not necessarily want him as a barista either, so I put a spin on it. It's Miami. I want him working what they call the little window at Cuban restaurants. If you're not from Miami and you're not Cuban and you don't know what we're talking about, well, shame on you. First of all, you should come visit the city. But yes, there are tons of Cuban restaurants scattered throughout the city, downtown, Coral Gables, wherever you're looking, there is going to be a Cuban restaurant here. And it's, every Cuban restaurant has the little window, what you call in Spanish, la ventanita. You go up there, there's a surly waitress or somebody behind the counter that takes your order. She seems friendly, but she's not. And anyway, you kind of bark out your order and they make you a colada, a coffee with extra sugar. That's the way it should be.
There's a great one right here on 2nd Avenue, right across the street from where I get my haircut. Jimmy Butler can work there. I would have no complaints.
Yeah, I'm sure you would. I'm sure you'd love to go over there and say, "Hey, Jimmy, give me a cortadito," or something along this line. Yeah, I think that's the perfect job for him. Yeah. And have him get into the whole Miami spirit. He can continue to bond with the city. This is his. We've embraced him. He's embraced us back, and I think that's a great way of doing it.
I like it. I like yours more. You win.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll talk a little bit about Kyle Lowry because he's in the news probably for all the wrong reasons. And so there are questions about what happens with him next season. We'll try and answer that. But before we do, just a reminder that feeling your best starts with what you eat. And Sakara helps you live a healthy, balanced lifestyle and to truly enjoy it with delicious, plant rich, transformational nutrition that builds a foundation for living in your best body. If you've been listening to the show for a while, you know that I'm a vegetarian. It's not easy to maintain a vegetarian diet. A lot of people I talk to are curious about it. They want to try and incorporate some of that. That's fine. And yet the challenge is trying to find the right thing to eat. Well, guess what? It's not a challenge anymore because with Sakara, it's a great program. They send you exactly what you're looking for. Again, plant-based nutrition to help you start your diet and get you feeling great about yourself. That's what it's all about. It's about building the nutritional building blocks in order to maintain and build on a healthy lifestyle. Sakara is a wellness company anchored in food as medicine on a mission to nourish your body through the power of plants. Their nutritionally designed chef-crafted breakfasts, lunches, and dinners are made with powerful plant-rich ingredients, so you get all the best nutrients provided by Mother Nature, just the way you intended to. And right now, Sakara is offering our listeners 20% off their first order when they go to sakara.com/locked-on20 and enter the code locked-on20 at checkout. That's Sakara, SAKARA.com/locked-on20 to get 20% off your first order at sakara.com/locked-on20. Well, we've got an important favor to ask all of you. We put together a survey so we can learn more about our listeners like you and to make your favorite Locked On podcast even better. This is your opportunity to tell us what you like and what you don't like about Locked On Podcast. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey right now to get started. Everyone that completes the survey will have a chance to win one of 10 Ticketmaster gift cards worth $100. I know I could certainly use that. Please fill out the survey. And again, thank you so much for your help and support. We'll be talking about Kyle Lowry. Again, he's in the news, or at least a hot topic on social media because of some comments from Pat Riley's presser that I think have been wildly misconstrued. Everybody's kind of focusing on the fact that he expects Kyle to return in world-class shape. That's the quote, right? And I think a lot of Raptors fans are overly sensitive. They're aware of what Kyle's personal issues have been throughout the past season. Even in yesterday's video, our episode, we get comments on YouTube about, people inquiring, what's the personal issue? What's the personal issue? It's not our place to say. It doesn't matter. The point is he had to go through it, and it certainly took its toll on him throughout the course of the regular season. And I think Pat is absolutely aware of that. If there's one thing about Pat Riley that every player who's ever played for him has spoken about, it's the fact that he can bond with them on a very human level, that he understands the ins and outs of your everyday life. And he actually puts a lot of importance on those things. He wants to know about your kids' soccer games. He wants to know about your wife's surgery and all these kinds of things. It's what's built that kind of family environment for the Miami Heat over the past 27 years. And so I don't think he was directing any negative comments at Kyle. I don't even think it matters. I think Kyle is certainly a big boy, no pun intended. He's certainly adult enough to be able to handle that kind of criticism or whatever it might be and say, you know what, you're right. I could get in better shape, regardless of my personal issues and everything else that I had to go through this past season. I could be in better shape to help take this team to another level.
It's not great analysis, but I think it's apt here. It is what it is, kind of thing. It's unfortunate that Kyle Lowry dealt with the things that he had to deal with over this past season and wasn't in world-class shape by the time the postseason came around. But it is what it is. And those things, if you're an optimist here, won't be the case going into next season. He's not going to be dealing with a move to Miami. He's not going to be dealing, hopefully, with some of the personal issues that he was dealing with this past season. And so there's a lot of reasons why next season, despite him being a year older, next season should actually be a better season for Kyle Lowry. Looking at this coldly, David, and I've said this before, it's really hard not to be disappointed with Kyle Lowry's season. Just excuses or not, it's just whatever it is. You look at the numbers, the fewest field goal attempts and points that he's averaged in 10 years. He averaged less than 8 points per game in the playoffs. It was disappointing. That was not what we envisioned when Kyle Lowry got here. That doesn't mean anybody needs to be overly critical or blame or whatever. It just is what it is. And the optimist could say, okay, that first year is in the books now. There's a lot of reasons to believe that the second year will be even better for Kyle Lowry. So now stripping away the sensitivities from this, Kyle Lowry does need to get into world-class shape. I believe Kyle Lowry will be in better shape by the time training camp rolls around. And I do believe the other part that Pat Riley said during this press conference that doesn't get included in the sound bites making their way around the internet is that the Heat have said, we're going to help him get to that. That's the whole thing with the Heat. The Heat have never been the organization that says, get in world-class shape, check in October. They're willing to do, you get into world-class shape by being part of the Heat organization. They will do what they can to help Kyle Lowry get into the condition that he needs to be in for the start of next year.
Absolutely. Ask Kelly Olynyk, ask James Johnson, ask Dion Waiters. They got paid because they bought into the system on a throwaway year from 2016 to 2017 when they won 41 games out of 82. And of course, they finished off that season on a 31-10 streak. Miami worked with those guys and said, you know what? You've shown us enough. We'll reward you if you continue to buy into it. If you fall out of favor, and some of those players did, guess what? Then you're no longer going to be rewarded the way that we expected you. But we want to continue to get you to the place where you can succeed. They will put you in a position to succeed. They will help you get there. And I think they will, in agreement with you, get Kyle there. So I've got one statistic that I think, bears, it's not really a big statistic. It's his lowest scoring output since his 2010, 11 season.
Yeah, 10 years. Yeah.
Second season in Houston. The big difference there was that he took over the starting point guard duties on that Houston Rockets team. And I think a big part of this is what we're kind of overlooking is he was, one, trying to figure out his teammates. He was also deferring to them to some extent. I think he's kind of trying to set everybody up. And I think that's a big part of it. Now with another year under his belt and assuming he's able to bounce back both mentally, emotionally, and physically to some degree, I think we'll see a more aggressive version. He does not want to go out this way. I don't think this is what he wants to be the way his season or his career is remembered, as a disappointing, injury-marred, emotionally difficult year for him. So I think we will see that bounce back from him.
Yeah, that kind of goes to my key question other than, hey, man, can you get into world-class shape, which is really it. But it's sort of, like, can you mirror what it is that Jimmy Butler did? Jimmy Butler also spent a lot of the year setting teammates up, being unselfish, kind of, again, not coasting, but sort of saving, biding his time until the postseason. Can Kyle Lowry do something similar? Can you get a similar thing where Kyle Lowry, I don't care if he averages 13 points on 10 field goal attempts during the regular season, if he's getting guys involved. And we're going to talk about Bam Adebayo in a separate episode, but like one of the things with him is can you get up to those 15 quality shots per game the way that Pat Riley was talking about? Kyle Lowry is going to be a big part of that, right? He's the point guard. He's the guy that runs that offense and gets guys set up. And so if I don't need him to be a 20 point per game scorer, I just need him to be more effective, more available. And then once the playoffs roll around, then can you ramp it up a little bit? Then can you ramp up the 3-point shooting, create some spacing for us and all these things? I would like to see him next year. Can you get into world-class shape? And can you stay in world-class shape and bide your time and pace yourself to the point where, hey, once the regular season turns into the postseason, can you ramp it up a little bit the way that we saw Jimmy Butler do it?
Yeah, I like that. I think that's a good question and makes a lot of sense. Mine is kind of a bigger picture kind of thing, and that's just sitting down with him and asking him honestly, do you want to be here? Because I think that's an all-encompassing question about everything that he's gone through personally, his connections, which is still quite obvious to the city of Toronto, to his hometown of Philadelphia, to his close friends around the league, DeMar DeRozan, et cetera. Does he want to be somewhere else? Does he want to even keep playing? Does he want to be in Miami? Because if he wants to be in Miami and he wants to succeed, as I mentioned before, if he wants to go out as a title winner, then he needs to be able to change some things about his approach, physically, et cetera, and to be able to be the more aggressive version that I expect will he be. And I asked this question, and I know a lot of fans are wondering, or not gonna, they're going to take it as a condemnation of Kyle and things of that sort. I am not nearly as critical. I've seen people be really, really critical of Lowry based on what his playoff performance was like, kind of ignoring the fact that he was going through injury, that he was slightly out of shape, and that he was going through some personal turmoil. Having said that, I think you still want him to be the best player you can be, that he can be. And if that's the case, I think you want him to buy in and to agree to buy into everything that Miami has to offer to get him to that point to succeed.
My summer job for Kyle Lowry, little league coach. I could just see him dressed in like khaki, like the way that he was dressed when he was dealing with the hamstring issue, and people were like, "Oh yeah, he looks like a golfer or a little league coach." I can actually see him being a little league coach, like with his kids in Miami or something, playing like a little league tackle football and just screaming out directions from the sideline. I could see him being very, very hands-on as a little league coach.
I'm not even sure I like it. I think he would be great. I'm sure. He gives me that kind of vibe. You can see him in like a khakis, like
Yeah.
like a polo shirt with camp name on it. He gets all excited, everything else like that. As surly as he is towards media, I think he would be the exact opposite working with kids. I have zero actual knowledge about what it takes to work on a golf course, but I think that's a summer job for him. I'm not sure if it's a caddy, a guy who fetches the balls. My
Oh,
extensive knowledge of
greenskeeper.
golf,
A
a
greenskeeper.
greenskeeper. My extensive knowledge of golf revolves around having seen half of Caddyshack and Happy Gilmore. That's about it. I've never set foot on a golf course. Well, not to play golf anyway. Other
You
than
should
that,
see all of those movies. Those are both really good movies in full. I don't know why you only watched half of them.
no, I saw half of Caddyshack and all of Happy
Well, you should
Gilmore. That's
watch
included.
all of Caddyshack. That's a classic.
I mean, I didn't need
That's
to see
that's
the
your
Gopher dance.
that's your summer job, David.
Well, that and eat Thin Mints apparently, but yeah, I mean, a greenskeeper, will that keep him in shape? That'll keep him happy. Can he hit a couple balls off the links too? I think that makes
Yeah.
him kind of connect to South Florida. Hopefully, if it doesn't rain too much, he'll be able to find a good course out here. I think that's a job for him.
I like it.
All right, well, move on and talk about the heart and soul of this team, PJ Tucker, and what's left for him. Does he want to be here too to help Miami in their quest of winning a title? But before we do that, just a reminder that betonline.net is your number one source for all your betting stats and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, news, and odds, including this year's basketball championship matchup, the NHL Hockey Conference Finals, Major League Baseball, and of course, all the latest fighting news from MMA and UFC to boxing. I imagine golf is on BetOnline also.
Mhm. Of course, it's
I've never bet
PGA
on golf.
season.
Do people bet on golf?
Oh
Is that
yeah.
a thing?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Really?
Especially when Tiger's involved, and he's not going to be playing in the next tournament because he's holding out for the one after that, and I don't remember the names, but that's something to keep an eye on.
Are you a golfer or a golf aficionado or neither?
I'm a Tiger Woods fan.
Okay. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sporting wagering information, including live betting, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Just a reminder, they can always reach us via email at lockdownheat@gmail.com or via Twitter using the hashtag AskAllHeat. Be sure to please subscribe to the show and leave a review. Amazing support from all of you throughout the postseason. We just want to keep it going during the offseason. We'll be bringing you, probably more content than everybody, covering everything from the drafts, free agency, and of course, our exit interviews. So make sure to stay tuned with us so you can get the best coverage possible. And we're talking about PJ Tucker now as we continue our exit interview. Again, we're going to be doing these regularly over the next couple of days, 3 players in each episode. We talked about Jimmy Butler. We talked about Kyle Lowry, questions about their past season and what's next for them. So let's talk about PJ Tucker, because I think his addition was one that was a long time coming, right? A name that's been linked to Miami for quite some time as a free agent, as a trade partner, a trade target, somebody that they've always wanted to have on this roster because he seems to be the perfect fit alongside Bam Adebayo. In the Orlando bubble, we saw the best version of Bam and Jay Crowder playing alongside each other, and that became kind of the template that everybody thought should be duplicated. You don't need to have a bigger center like Myers Leonard or Dwayne Dedman or even Omer Yurtseven playing alongside Bam. You need a stretch 4 who can be a versatile defender and, again, shoot to 3, create opportunities for other. PJ does that as well as anybody, and he kind of discovered the fountain of youth too. Like I was pleasantly surprised. I remember the comments from a lot of Bucks fans going, you know what? It kind of sucks that PJ left, but it's not like he's really a factor. You know, we've got Giannis, we've got Chris Middleton, we've got Bobby friggin' Portis. We don't need PJ Tucker. And then somehow Tucker winds up becoming a fantastic player. And many would argue perhaps Miami's second most consistent player in the postseason, because Tyler Herro had on and off games. Bam Adebayo certainly did. And Lowry, as we mentioned before, did. So Tucker continues to show himself as a stout defender, put the ball down on the floor a number of times, was able to create opportunities for other, great rebounder, innate understanding of everything on the floor, incredibly high basketball IQ, and just a toughness and fortitude that made him, as Pat Riley said in yesterday's press conference, a cornerstone of the franchise, which is extremely high praise. What's your big takeaway from this past season for Tuck?
Basically everything you just said. He's a perfect fit for the Miami Heat. He's a perfect fit, not just for the culture that they want to set. I mean, there was times where we would go into practice after, when they would open doors to media, and the Heat players were still, either doing their scrimmages or their shooting drills or defensive drills, sometimes. And you just hear PJ Tucker yelling and screaming at teammates to do this and to do that. And he used to, and it was a little jarring at first. You're like, wow, is like everything okay here? And Eric Spoelstra just time after time being like, that's what we love about PJ. That's what we love
Yeah,
about PJ. And that's sort of my takeaway from PJ Tucker. A perfect fit from the cultural standpoint and
sure.
everything that this organization embodies, but also on the court. He was able to let his game flourish a little bit, surprising people with with his straight line drives and his floaters near the basket. He led
Yes.
the league in 3-point shooting for a big chunk of the beginning of the season. Then he
Yep.
went through a little dip and then kind of refound it later on. There's a lot of reasons to love PJ Tucker's fit in Miami. I think he is a core piece of whatever this version of the roster is. The key question for him is whether or not he opts in
Mm.
to his $7.3 million contract for next year or opts out and tries to get a more lucrative deal or maybe even a longer term deal,
Yes.
because as he told ESPN's Mark Spears recently, he thinks he could play another 3 or 4 years. So does he
Mm.
look to just say, you know what? I'm done bouncing around after Houston. I went to Milwaukee and now I'm in Miami. I kind of want to find a long-term home. It would not shock me if he wanted that long-term home to be Miami. But maybe there's a way that he can, after this great season that he just had at 36 years old, does he try to double down on that and say, you know what? Now's the time for me to opt out and go after that multi-year contract, whether it's in Miami or not. But hopefully in Miami, I would think would be his stance. So that's the key question: does he opt in or does he opt out?
Yeah, I think that's the only real question that you can ask about PJ's season. Like, I mean, I had questions about being able to be as consistently good from the 3-point line. He shot almost 42% this past season. Can he keep that going? That's almost like, I mean, I'm not sure if that's exactly a career high, but it's pretty close. It might be on more limited attempts, but no, it is by far a career high. Also a career
Yeah.
high on 3-point attempts too. So, it was a fantastic season from him. Can he keep it going? I think he can. I think he's ground bound enough where he's not necessarily putting his body at incredible risk. Now, his legs, lower legs, we saw him go through a number of what looked like calf injuries or ankle injuries or just something in the lower legs. You never want that to be a weak point that is going to be continuing to suffer and struggle as you get older. And
Well,
already at
the way he
37,
plays, like I know that he's a standstill shooter, but like when he chases after rebounds, he's a really physical player. He moves
yeah,
his feet a lot on defense, like he's forced to because of the defensive assignments that he's given. So I think his health is like his age and health is a real issue. That's a normal thing to be concerned about and to question. But I do
yeah,
think that if you're the Heat, I think you prefer that he opt in and
yep,
then you have him for next year. And then you just look, okay, what does that age 37 season look like? And then we can make a decision next summer if he's not the same player that he was this last year. But again, that's why PJ might be like, you know what? Maybe now's the time for me to go get a multi-year deal and not have to worry about that. According to Bobby Marks, his range on the open market is around $6 to $8 million a year, which is right in line with that option that he's going to have. But maybe I do think that the compromise the Heat will have his non-bird rights. They can go up to about $8.4 million to re-sign him. I wonder if I could see a compromise there being like, okay, opt out. We're going to give you something close to what you're instead of 7.3, we'll give you a $1 million raise or something near that, and maybe we'll do it for 2 years. Maybe that second year is not fully guaranteed, or there's incentives tied to it, or something like that. I could see that being a compromise that works for both sides.
I'm trying to think of a title contender that could use a PJ Tucker like as a starter. Like the Lakers couldn't do it. I don't think the
Philadelphia.
Suns. They have Tobias Harris at the 4. I don't think they're going to move him anytime soon.
I mean, you
I
could bring
also
PJ
don't.
off the bench. I just feel I'm looking at teams that could use like his toughness, and like Philadelphia was clearly
Yeah,
not tough, and he's got a relationship with James Harden. That was one that I thought of, but
I don't
you're
think they're
right
going to give
though.
him
Like if
4 years
you're
though.
right, yeah, and if you're PJ, you're like, why would I go there if I'm getting the same offer from Miami?
Right.
No, it's good. Brooklyn, maybe you could see
Mm.
them. Like there will be teams that offer PJ Tucker a contract. It's just how
Yeah.
long it is, and does he really want to play there?
I think it bodes well that as a free agent last year, he had his number of suitors also coming off a championship age 36, etc. And that still teams came a calling and he said, you know what? I want to come to Miami. And as he said many times before, he thought he was coming to Miami the year before when he was instead traded to Milwaukee and was a helpful part of their title run too. So I think that he chose to come here, that he saw what they were building, and that there's still unfinished business. He strikes me, again, this is totally subjective on my part. He strikes speculative, excuse me, that he is the kind of person that would want to finish what he started. So I could see him being a part of this team for years to come. And you know what? I think he deserves it. I think he's a great person to inherit the title of player, mentor, coach role, everything about this culture that Udonis Haslam currently embodies. So I think he's great.
Selfishly,
to kind of carry it.
I hope he resigns because he's a great interview, and I love talking to him. He's really, really smart. He always gives me something new that I didn't know before every time I talk to him. What's your summer job for PJ?
Oh, I mean, it's ideal, right? He's got to work a part-time job at Foot Locker.
There you go. Get that employee discount.
That's right.
I have him as a no-nonsense club bouncer who looks at your ID and without saying anything just nods you in towards the door.
I could see that. I could also see him be like, come on, dog, that's not you. And he throws
and
ID.
Just joking around with you?
Yeah. And so, or maybe even let you in. Probably.
I don't think he even lifts his head. I think he just gives you the eyes and just sort of looks at your ID, nods you in, and then just motions for the next person in line for their ID.
Is it the black coat with a black shirt underneath and just like a gold chain on, like simple, bouncer attire?
Maybe not even a chain. Maybe not even a chain. Just like a black shirt, like an oversized black T-shirt, black Dickies, and he's just sitting there. And there's like a little bit of rain still left on the ground, and he's just nodding people in.
Still wearing like Jordans or whatever shoe.
Yeah, of course. Right? Yeah. He's probably wearing like Jordan 3 breads or something. Like I don't know.
Okay, well, that's much more shoe information than I certainly have. But PJ Tucker, I think, has proven himself as a big part of Heat culture, and I think. Well, let's see what happens over the summer because it's a big one for Miami as they continue to make offseason moves. But we still want to continue to explore some of the past season, so we can finally put it to rest as we explore what happened and also what moves on next. So we'll continue these exit interviews throughout the rest of the week. Thanks so much for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. But make sure to go check out the Locked On NBA Big Board. Host Rafael Barlow from NBA Draft Junkies and author of the NBA Big Board newsletter is joined by Richard Stayman, Sam Ferris, and Leif Thulin, giving fans an in-depth look into the NBA draft, mock drafts, player rankings, and of course, big boards. Who doesn't love those? It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. This is David Ramil signing off for now. Thanks so much for joining me, Wes.
Wrap it up, B.